would like to yield to the Ranking Member Ruiz for a closing statement if he would like one.
Dr. Fauci, I'd like to thank you for your testimony today, and I would like to thank you for your decades of service to our nation, especially with the HIV epidemic that our nation suffered through, the pandemic flu, Ebola, Zika, and COVID-19, and your years of research and investment that led to the rapid development of the COVID-19 vaccine that saved millions of lives. Thank you. And over the past 4 years, you have been personally targeted by extreme narratives about the origins of the COVID-19 pandemic and the U.S. government's response to it. They began in force in retaliation to wisdom you offered that contradicted the reckless and dangerous therapeutic recommendations by President Trump and have remained part of House Republicans' political playbook. These extreme narratives have been the bedrock of the Select Subcommittee's Republican-led probe and the untenable inferences they've somehow drawn despite the overwhelming evidence that it is inconvenient to those narratives. I want to be clear, the evidence uncovered from more than 425,000 pages of documents and 20 closed-door interviews of current and former federal officials has undermined the extreme narratives behind Republicans' own probe. As I alluded to at the beginning of this hearing, my Democratic colleagues and I are committed to speaking objectively and truthfully about what the evidence shows, and this is what it shows. Dr. Fauci did not fund research through the EcoHealth Alliance grant that caused the COVID-19 pandemic. Dr. Fauci did not lie about gain-of-function research in Wuhan, China. Dr. Fauci did not orchestrate a campaign to suppress the lab leak theory. These findings are apparent from the evidence. In fact, this much was clear by the time of Dr. Fauci's 2-day transcribed interview this past January. In the 5 months since, the Select Subcommittee has conducted several more closed-door interviews and reviewed several thousand more pages of documents. This additional evidence in Dr. Fauci's testimony today has only made Republicans' claims less plausible and more preposterous. And when I was named ranking member of the Select Subcommittee, I made a commitment to follow the facts in objectively analyzing the origins of the COVID-19 pandemic. The Select Subcommittee is to meaningfully improve our nation's preparedness for future pandemics, then we must take an objective approach to the factual and scientific evidence available to us. The origins of the COVID-19 pandemic remain uncertain. I would like to remind my Republican colleagues that that uncertainty is not an opportunity for them to author fiction for partisan gain. It could have been a lab leak and it could have been an animal transmission. And at the cost of meaningfully advancing our understanding of COVID-19's origins, Republicans have levied extreme allegations of creating SARS-CoV-2 against Dr. Fauci. The result is that Republicans' own probe has failed to shed any additional light on a central question for our Select Subcommittee. In fact, we're actually entering the 4th quarter of this Congress and this Select Subcommittee on Corona's pandemic. And what have we focused on? It's not an objective investigation on the origin as either a lab leak or animal transmission. We have spent the vast majority of time, like in this hearing, with Republicans trying to prove that Dr. Fauci and Collins funded research through EcoHealth that created the SARS-CoV-2 virus. And in order for that to be true, it is dependent on proving the lab leak theory to be true. So it has not been an objective investigation as to whether or not the virus came from a lab or an animal transmission in order to prevent and prepare for the next pandemic. It has been to push this narrative. And this hearing is their climax, their star witness to finally prove their narrative. And they did not do so. Instead of focusing on solutions like fortifying our public health workforce and infrastructure, securing domestic supply chain of vital public health equipment and medications, or equipping schools, churches, synagogues, mosques, businesses to safely stay open during the next deadly novel viral pandemic. Instead, they focused on accusations without evidence. And it seemed like even though the evidence was there that the accusations were false, it didn't matter. They still accused him on a cover-up, suppressing the truth, that he initiated, prompted, or edited the Proximal Origins paper, that he funded a gain of research that created the SARS-CoV-2 virus, even that he received royalties. You know, his answers today and his transcribed interviews and his countless emails refuted all of this. They always have. And his testimony today did again. But I guess that doesn't matter for the majority. The truth is that there is no evidence to prove this narrative that we spent so much time addressing. Their accusations are without evidence, but it doesn't matter to them. Intentionally misleading the public is propagating disinformation, and it's wrong and dangerous not only because it manufactures distrust in our public health leaders and our public health agencies, but also because it targets Dr. Fauci and other public health officials for violent death threats. Dr. Fauci just said that anytime anybody alludes to the false accusation that he created the COVID-19 pandemic, his death threats go up. But irresponsibly and recklessly, members on this subcommittee continued to accuse him of that. So, for the remaining months of the Select Subcommittee, I reaffirm my commitment to take a serious, balanced look at the question and the possibilities of whether the novel coronavirus emerged from a lab or from nature. And I emphasize to my colleagues that any uncertainty about those origins is an opportunity for us to work constructively together on forward-looking measures to improve our nation's readiness for future public health threats. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.